Hi, so in this lesson we're going to be working with congruent polygons. Okay, congruent polygons have congruent corresponding parts. So their matching sides and angles are congruent. When you name a congruent polygon, you must list corresponding vertices in the same order. So for example, here I have the polygon ABCD is congruent to EFGH. Right? So that means that A is congruent to E, B is congruent to F, C is congruent to G, and H is congruent to D, right? And I can see that AB is congruent to EF, BC is congruent to FG, CD is congruent to GH, and that DA is congruent to E. Now, the third angle theorem states that if two angles of one triangle are congruent to two angles of another triangle, then the third angle is also congruent. So if I have that A is congruent to D, and I have that B is congruent to E, that means that C has to be congruent to F. Now, each pair of polygons is congruent. Find the measure of the number of angles, right? So that means that if this set, polygon is congruent to this one, that means that angle A, so the measure of angle A of angle 1 has to be equal to 110, right? Because G is congruent to A, and K is congruent to E, so that means that the measure of angle 2 equals 120 degrees. The next one, I know that angle M is congruent to S, so that means that the measure of angle 3 equals 90 degrees, and the measure of angle 4 equals 135 degrees. Next one, so in this case, it's important to find the corresponding angle. So 5 is corresponding to this one right here, that is 140. So that means that the measure of angle 5 equals 140 degrees. Measure of angle 6, D is corresponding with X, so it equals to 90 degrees. Angle 7 equals 40 degrees, and angle 8 equals 90 degrees. Next one, I want to name 3 pairs of congruent sides, right? So in this case, it's very important to follow this order. It's telling me that CAT is congruent to GSD. So that means that CA is congruent to JS. So in the same order, CA is congruent to, right? So AT is congruent to SD, and CT is congruent to JD. Now when I make 3 congruent angles, so in the same order, so angle C is congruent to angle J, angle A is congruent to angle S, and angle T is congruent to angle D. I want to name it to see if triangle GHJ is congruent to a triangle IHJ. So in this case, I need to see if I have enough information to prove. So that means that I need to find out if all the angles are congruent and all the sides are congruent, right? So I know that this angle is congruent to that one. Why? Because again, these two angles are right, so they are congruent. Angle G is congruent to angle I, right? So that means that this one has to be congruent to that one. So GHJ has to be congruent to IHJ because of the third angle theorem, right? I know that GH is congruent to JH, is congruent to JH because of the refractive property. So this one, just I can conclude that triangle GH is congruent to triangle IHJ because all the corresponding parts are congruent. So this one, I know that those two angles are congruent. I know that this angle is congruent to that one because it's vertical angles. I know that R is congruent to B, but I don't have enough information to prove that they're congruent because I don't know what's happening with the sides. So we cannot cannot conclude that they are congruent. Okay, so now I want to find the values, right? So those two triangles are congruent. So I know that this one is 74. I know that this one is 5x. So that means that I have 3x plus 2 plus 5x plus 74 equals 180. So 8x plus 76 equals 180. So minus 76. I have that 8x equals 102. And I'm just going to divide by 8. So that means that x equals 51 over 4 degrees. The next one, so I know that those two are congruent. So 2x equals 10. So just dividing. X equals 5. So I know that I'm working with angle B and angle G. And as you can see, the order B and G are corresponding angles. So that means that they have to be congruent. So 3y equals y plus 50. So minus y is 2y equals 50. And I'm just going to divide by 2. So y equals 25, right? But it's asking you for the measurement. So that means that, or measures, that I'm going to substitute back here. So the measure of angle P equals 3 times 25. So 75 degrees. The measure of angle G equals 25 plus 50. It equals 75 degrees. So C and H are also corresponding. And C and H, so that means that they are congruent. So 5C plus 20 equals 6C plus 10. So minus 5C 20 equals Z plus 10 minus 10. So Z equals 10. I'm going to plug it back in. So the measure of angle C is 5 times 10 plus 20. 50 plus 20 equals 70 degrees. And the measure of angle H equals 6 times 10 plus 10. So 6 plus 10 equals 70 degrees. Okay, so in this case it says that BD is the angle bisector of angle ABC. So let's start with that given because I want to prove it, right? So statement, reason, one, BD is the angle bisector of angle ABC. That's given, right? So if this is the bisector, that means that this angle is congruent to that, right? So that means that angle ABD is congruent to angle CBD, right? By definition of angle bisector, right? So my angle bisector is dividing angle ABC in half. Now I'm going to go to the next given. So BD is the perpendicular bisector of AC. Again, bisector means that those two angles are congruent. Right? And those two sides are congruent. Sorry, those two pieces, right? So AD is congruent to CD. Wait, that doesn't go there. So this is given. So AD is congruent to CD. This is by definition of perpendicular bisector. Now, I know that fact that BD is congruent to BD. as by reflexive property, right? And I also know that angle ADB is congruent to angle CDB by the third angle theorem, right? So I have everything that is congruent to itself. So that means that triangle ADB is congruent to triangle CDB by definition of congruent polygons. And that's it for this lesson. May the force be with you.